Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Federico Savini. I am an associate professor in environmental planning at the University of Amsterdam. And today I'm going to answer the most asked questions about degrowth. What does degrowth mean? Degrowth means a planned downscaling of all economic activities that generate environmental impact and do not bring collective well-being. Starting from those activities that are less necessary for the well-being of people and the environment. Degrowth means a slowdown of the economy. However, degrowth means also an improvement of the conditions of living of everybody, starting from those groups of people that do not meet basic living standards today. So degrowth is also an improvement of living conditions for everybody. Degrowth, in fact, is often associated with a process of liberation from the obsession of economic productivity, and therefore the making of space for creativity, care, health, education, well-being. Go with the next. What are the key principles of degrowth? Degrowth is an approach to sustainability and social justice. So, in fact, ecological sustainability and social justice are two foundational principles of degrowth, which are linked together in a degrowth agenda. Now, these two major principles are related to many other sub-principles, I would say. One is, of course, reduction and downscaling, simplicity, solidarity, cooperation. These are all principles that affiliate to degrowth because they reject or contest the mainstream principles of our growth-dependent economy. What is an example of degrowth? There are many examples of degrowth out there. Actually, many of the examples of degrowth often do not use or self-define themselves as degrowth examples. But as scholars, we tend to associate them often with the degrowth project. And this example can be found at different scales, from the most local scale to the national or international scale. For example, a local scale practice of degrowth could be a housing cooperative, a project initiated by a collective of peoples that decide to build their own house in a way that is ecologically reducing their impact on the planet in terms of materials and energy. So using spaces of sharing, reducing excess facilities, and so on. At the same time, the same project of collaboration and cooperation to produce housing allows this housing estate to not be individually appropriated and financially valorized, so in order to keep it affordable. This is an example of degrowth in the housing field. Another example could be a repair cafe or an urban garden. These are local examples of degrowth, and there are many. However, there are also non-local examples, so examples that take place at national or international scales. An example of a degrowth policy is, for example, the universal basic income. This is a policy that pursues a universal income for all citizens of a particular region or country, independently from their personal situation, and guarantees a degree of freedom and liberation, in fact, from the obligation of work or debt. This is also an example of a degrowth policy because it rejects the idea that we all need to produce and maximize our time in order to sustain our livelihood. Why is degrowth bad? It's a good question from Google. As scholars of degrowth, we do not consider degrowth bad. In fact, the whole idea of being ecologically regenerative and socially just is that we want a society and an economy that is better than the one we have today. However, I understand many people who are not familiar with the term degrowth might associate the prefix "de" with something that is decreasing or worsening, and therefore associate degrowth with a worsening of the conditions. This is clearly a misunderstanding, and it's often due to, indeed, the unavailability of clear documents that explain what is degrowth or accessibility to those documents, but also often a deliberate project to somehow ridicule degrowth by mainstream economists or mainstream policymakers. So degrowth is considered bad often because it's misunderstood as reduction of essential goods that everybody needs for their survival. This is completely the opposite of what degrowth argues, which argues a universal accessibility to basic goods. In fact, if we want to be more specific, we might say that degrowth might be bad for those incomes that are very high, for those few people that own too much, for those few social groups that abuse of the environment and exploit labor and nature in different continents. For them, it might be a bad thing. But we could also say that it might not be so bad as far as actually we understand this reduction as a liberation and as the possibility to explore other pathways of living, more oriented to, indeed, the creativity, health and care rather than work or productivity.